Welcome to the fabulous Fempreneurship podcast series for entrepreneurs with your host, Elaine Slatter. Each episode addresses topics to help you and your business grow and succeed. Join us as we interview a variety of global experts.
Hello, podcast listeners, to the fabulous Fempreneurship podcast series. We've done over 130 in over 3 seasons, and we hope you are enjoying each one of them. So today, our topic is sustaining and growing your business. Are you ready for 2021? And our guest today is Anna Yu. Welcome to our show, Anna.
Hi, Elaine. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to sit down and have this chat with you today.
Yes, me too. We have a lot of synergies in common, and I know it's going to be a great conversation. So before we get into our topic, would you like to tell the listeners a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. Thanks, Elaine, for the opportunity, for sure. Well, my background in my career has been largely in the corporate world. I worked in banking and financing and with some large technology players. Fortune 500 companies and the like. And through that, I, had the advantage of being able to work with teams of people, managing in a matrix environment. I've had the ability to work in organizations within organizations where, we may be building out a new business strategy and executing on those plans, as well as working with business owners, because I actually started my career in commercial lending and risk management is in my blood. So I've had the advantage of working with business owners and businesses to help guide them whether they need help with their restructuring, with their growth plans. And I decided, to take this concept of applying this large corporate world and take it to entrepreneurs, small, medium-sized businesses, this whole philosophy. And so when you think about some of the disciplines in the large corporate world, you're talking about rigor, discipline, being proactive, processes, systems, operations, people, governance and risk management is helping business owners apply some of those concepts into their business and converting their visions to reality and helping them to build out their business plans. So I founded U Consulting Group, and that is where I really focus on guiding businesses and business owners and applying those concepts into a real life scenario where you can get some, immediate outcome and immediate results to some of those actions that are taken.
Well, that's fantastic. Yes, there are many opportunities from the corporate world that you can incorporate, even if you're a small to medium-sized business. So being an expert like yourself, that's a great asset to small and medium-sized businesses. So diving into our topic here, what do you think are some of the blind spots that most business owners have during a crisis?
And I would say that these blind spots could apply even when there is not a crisis. And, when you think about some of the leadership attributes that are really important, they are, integrity, being practical and facing the truth and owning your own mistakes, being accountable, and that means being responsible for the outcomes and the decisions that you make. Applying this sense of positivity in terms of how you manage your business or how you manage your teams or your suppliers, your partners, is being purposeful and having that positive approach. Some of the other ones that are really key, and particularly in times of crisis, is resilience, right? How do you operate under pressure? How do you cope with disruption, which we've all seen over the last 8 months, is the ability to cope with disruption. And how do you plan for that you plan for that by being proactive. And, one of the things that catches business owners off guard sometimes is when faced with a difficult scenario or decision or a crisis is not being prepared and not having thought through the different scenarios and implications of an existing process, an existing strategy, an existing, whether it be, people in their team in terms of performance. And empathy, particularly through a crisis, whether it's externally, like the one that we're experiencing now, or it's internal, or with an employee, for instance, somebody on your team is having that empathy attribute is really important, is putting yourselves into the other person's shoes, understanding the implications of how a particular situation will impact. And finally, having the ability to influence and having positive influence and achieving those results through the people that choose to follow you. And all of those things are important, particularly even more important, during times of crisis, when you talk about blind spots, and really exhibiting and demonstrating those leadership skills are really important.
Yes, during a time of rapid change when there's not very much time to adjust, that can lead to a lot of stress. So I think you need to acknowledge that we're in that kind of time of rapid change with not a lot of a time to adjust. But you just got to go with that feeling. And, we talk about fight and flight. So this is a time when you really have to not be in the flight mode. You have to be in the proactive fight mode, so that if you are in a situation with your business that you need to pivot during these particularly difficult times, then you just have to be proactive and sit down and list all the things that you could do so that you could pivot. So I think we have to recognize those blind spots are more evident during something like this pandemic. And just, acknowledge that within yourself and your team. And I think work together with your proactive leadership to finding a solution. And your team will help you do that.
For sure. Success is through yourself and all the leadership skills and attributes that we're talking about, but ability to influence and work through your people, whether you're in a matrix environment, whether you are a sole proprietor, you still have people that you work with, your partners, your suppliers, your mentors, and the like. So this really applies to, personal leadership and how you apply it in all of these different scenarios.
Yes, even if you're a solopreneur, I think our listeners have to recognize, as you said, Anna, that there's a lot of people on your team, even if they're not employees, as you mentioned, your mentors, business mentorship groups, also your suppliers, as you mentioned, they can be a great help to you as well. And don't forget your business friends. They don't have to be in the same business as you, but they can come up with some ideas that sometimes when you're too close to the business, you don't see them yourself.
Absolutely. There's a lot of research that talks about effective leadership and how it impacts your business performance. And one of the data points that I always share with business owners and business people is effective leaders are 13 times more likely to outperform their industry competitors in key business metrics such as revenue and bottom line. And so, I'm a strong believer, and my model really covers, how do you use your personal leadership attributes and leverage those and enhance those, because they will absolutely impact your business performance.
Yes, totally agree. So what advice would you have for business owners and entrepreneurs to get ready for 2021? Because we really don't know what 2021 is going to look like right at this moment.
Yeah, you know what? Great question, Elaine. And, I'll start off to say we can't ignore the current second wave that is happening globally across the country, nationally and so forth. And so, we are, as business owners and companies alike, small, medium, large enterprise, everyone is experiencing, the second wave. The good news is that, there's been a period of adjustment and a period of companies and business owners having to pivot. And, I always go back to, one of the most important attributes of, managing a successful business is to be proactive, the ability to look around the corner and to be able to plan for the unexpected. And so there's this, concept around how do you become, proactive, and the ability to choose your actions and the ability to choose your response. So there's two elements to this. The first one is, what are some of the tough decisions that need to be made, right? So let's just say over the next 30 days, what are those tough decisions, whether it means your workforce, whether it means revisiting your supplier contracts and terms, whether it means you need to go to the bank and assess and consider refinancing. Can you leverage any government assistance programs? So those are, some of the tough, big decisions that need to be made. And I always advise businesses to do that quickly, because the worst thing that can happen is letting uncertainty linger. And those decisions never get made. And then, your demons come back to haunt you 3 months down the road. The second piece of advice I would have for short term is prioritizing, your plan over the next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. And it has to be that tight of a timeline, because we're no longer in this world where we can forecast and project out 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year, 2 years, in fact, right? And so what that means is having the ability to prioritize your cash flow, your revenues, your profits. How are you going to pay for, the critical bills that are coming up, and the long term? And the third piece is the delegation, right? The delegation to your team, if you have a team, the delegation in terms of yourself, the self-regulation in terms of where you prioritize your energy, or where you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck, really, is where you're going to optimize the results and where you should spend your time. And so those would be the three immediate pieces of advice. And I have a longer, broader readiness advice that I can share with you. But let me just pause and see if you've got any comments so far.
Well, I really agree with you on taking a look at your situation. And a good place to start is your profit and loss statement, because if you go through your expense lines one by one, you can see what you can quickly eliminate or lower the cost, and make sure that you can cover your fixed costs. So you need to have enough cash flow for, I think, at the present time in this particular economy, for at least 3 months to cover your fixed costs. So your fixed costs are, if you have a bricks and mortar location, a warehouse or a store, you've got your rent, you've got your light, you've got your heat, whatever costs are associated with your location, you need to have that, I think, on hand. So protect that. Don't cut the spending as much as you can to just essentials for the next 3 months, because we just don't know. In the case of government programs, they tend to leave those, fairly short. You know what I mean? Like the timing and when they're announcing the new ones and the extensions of the old ones. So in order to protect yourself and your business, you probably need to have about 3 months cash flow on hand. I don't know what you think about that, but that would be my minimum.
Yeah, you know what? Interesting because, when I look at how financing companies or investment companies assess a company, a business, whether, and particularly for businesses that are in early stage growth, startups, or even businesses that are, have been operating for a little while, is there used to be, this requirement. Let's look at your cash flow, and do you have the ability to sustain your operations over the next 12 months? And now, that requirement is more like 18 to 22 months, because the use of capital and or capital efficiencies will be even more important. And so I would say absolutely, 3 month cash flow is important. However, I would say, I would advise all businesses to really look at, a much longer term with a paced plan as to how they're going to survive, over the next, like I said, 1 month, 2 month, and they have to look at it in those phases that are really tight, right? Gone are the days where we can look at things, a quarter at a time, for example, as you know, with financial projections and whatnot, is having that tighter lens on your business, and a critical eye on assuming a worst case scenario, really.
Yes, that's the whole thing. And in certain industries, like for the hardest hit, I think, is the tourism industry and restaurants. They're the hardest hit at the moment because they're not coming back very quickly. And depending on how many more lockdowns we're going to go through this winter, they're the ones that are the most vulnerable. And of course, the banks are pretty leery of those particular areas at the moment, because they know that that's, got those are the two areas with the greatest amount of risk.
Right, exactly. And, they're applying, obviously, cautiousness around their decision making, change in how they adjudicate. It's called the COVID risk factor, right?
Yes.
And so, where before they may have been looking for, a debt to equity ratio of X, or, your cash burn rate of X, it's going to be something, very different. And so my advice for businesses is, take a look around you in terms of also your competitors, because this may be an opportunity to come together, consolidation in the marketplace, and take a look at the higher growth industries. We've seen a spike in, manufacturing, supply chain, digital transformation with businesses, security as it relates to systems and infrastructure. How are services like healthcare being delivered, for example, or how are customer behaviors changing, and artificial intelligence, and you know financing companies and investors will be looking for companies that can innovate and be able to take advantage of some of these growth areas. So, the ability to pivot, change agility will be really, really key.
Yes, we saw that at the very beginning of the pandemic, where companies pivoted to produce PPE, masks, ventilators, all those essentials at the very beginning of COVID. And they weren't necessarily in those kinds of businesses, but they worked with collaborators and shared proprietary information, like drawings and so forth and so on, and pivoted to be beneficial to everybody in the community. And even if you're a small business owner and you say have retail space, there's no reason why you can't share that retail space with somebody else, so
Right.
that you can share the costs. And, as long as it's not a competing business, it could be a collaborative business. You can work together to grow both your businesses.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So moving along, how do you businesses find money? I mean, say that they're thriving and they've pivoted, but they still need some money. Where are some of the places they could go to look for financing?
Well, I can speak to, for example, in Canada, and it's also available, in U.S. and some of the other countries. There's various government financing to support new businesses, and obviously, they would take into account your personal credit history, for example, and collateral that you put up. If you were financing equipment, the equipment, for example, or the hard piece of fixed asset, I'll call it, can be used as collateral. The other piece of advice that I would give, and many businesses forget or are not aware of this, is there are many government grants as it relates to existing or new businesses. This concept of, social responsibility, focusing on the environment, helping the economy grow, creating jobs, research and development, innovation. All of those can be enablers to you as a business owner to find government grants. There are many, many different various types. They could be in the form of a grant. They could be in the form of tax credits. Now there are application processes. And, and then we all know, the traditional banks or financing companies that can offer financing to businesses. I would say they're more traditional. And then, the other thing is, really, before you do all that is really, before you go and look for financing is really thinking through what is your business, what's your mission, what's your vision. And, that starts with your business plan, your strategy, and what are all of the revenue streams that are aligned to that strategy. And again, like Elaine, I talk about this, from the perspective of applying the large corporate philosophies into any size of business, because whether you're small, medium, or large, one really needs to have a critical eye and think through, what is my business plan? Where are my sources of revenue? And thinking through at the same time is how you reach your customers, who are your target customers, how do you want to be viewed, in the marketplace. All of those are going to be very important factors when a financing company or an investor, and that investor could be an institution, it could be, your friends and family network. They're going to want to understand, what's your strategy, what's the brand that you're going to represent, and where are you going to get your revenue sources from in terms of, your projections. So business planning, prioritizing, financial plan, really testing your financial projections and testing those assumptions. And then lastly, the most important element next to the financials is the people aspect, right? Who management team? Is it you independently? And what do you bring to the table? Do you have a team of people, and what do they bring to the table? And, I think all of those are really the key framework in which a lending company or an investor or friends and family network will look for. And even when you go to get, apply for government grants and tax credits, they're going to want to understand what's your business plan, and what's your outlook, and what's your strategy, and what's your brand, and how are you going to execute. The execution plan is going to be really important.
Yes. Today, a lot of people say you don't need a business plan because the first, year you're in business, that business plan's out the window. But the way I look at a business plan is it's thinking about all aspects of your business and testing it out by knowing your competition, knowing your market, knowing your audience, where your brand fits in the competitor landscape. And if you're not proactive and planning all that, then you're not going to be very good when you start your business. You've got to have a good idea. Otherwise, you could be pouring your life savings into something that you haven't really tested out. And a business plan is a good way of getting your thoughts on paper and organizing yourself and modeling your business before you open the doors and sink a lot of money into it. And, one of the other things I like, I don't know if you suggest this, but the business model canvas is a great way to start before you even start a business plan. So you can think about your whole business, who can help you, who your collaborators would be, what is your target audience, how are you going to deliver your goods or your service or whatever it is. And it's a precursor to the lean startup and a precursor to a business plan. So there's lots of testing tools out there before you launch your business. And I really think, as you suggest, you need to have a plan before you launch.
Oh, absolutely. And a lot of that will be, a reflective exercise. It could be who can I reach out to test my concepts? We talk about target markets, target customers. Are there focus groups that you can participate in or create? And because a lot of times having the outside lens into an environment or your thoughts or your plan can be very valuable in getting that feedback and being really open to the feedback that you're receiving. And then obviously, executing against that. And so, I'm a firm believer in testing concepts, testing what the results are, pivoting if you need to, adjusting your model, because it is an evolution. Like what you thought about in terms of your vision and your ideas may look very different down the path as you start to execute and you start to test.
Yes. Now, if you have like a bricks and mortar idea or an actual product idea, quite a few people use Facebook to test that idea out. I know a young girl who started in August her business, which is refinishing furniture. And so she doesn't have a website, she doesn't have Instagram. She just has a Facebook business page. And she just posts pictures of what she's doing while she's doing it, the before, the after. And then when she sells the item, she puts sold on the item and posts it again. And she started a phenomenal business in a small town, and she's going like crazy.
Great idea.
Paid the mortgage for her house a year ahead just from the funds she's received by doing business since August. And I think that's an amazing way to test your concept.
Great idea. And, we live in this digital world now with social media that, and all of us have our own networks and reach and these community groups. And it's a great idea to test your concepts with getting an objective viewpoint in terms of what elements are going to be, received well by future customers.
Yes, that's it. Because you don't know until you test it. And you do need to test because you got to find if the market wants what you've got to sell. And the only way to do that is to test it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So thank you very much. It's been a very interesting conversation. Is there anything you'd like to add before we talk about your offer?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for the opportunity. I really enjoyed our talk, and I hope that the listeners out there will find value in this conversation. If I was to leave some lasting, pieces of advice and perspective is, always think back to a lot of the key points that we talked about here, which is, planning, financials, and people. Those are absolutely the key elements to any framework of a successful business.
That's fantastic. And could you tell our listeners about your offer, what you've got as a special for our listeners today?
Sure. Thank you so much. Yes. So for our listeners, what I'm offering is a complimentary 30-minute self-assessment. It could be in the area of leadership. I've actually created a tool to help business owners and leaders conduct a self-assessment, as well as or a self-assessment on their business operations in various aspects of their strategy, their brand, their operations, their finance. So it will be, I believe, posted on your blog. And for anyone that is interested in taking advantage of this offer, please contact me at yuconsultinggroup@gmail.com. That's yuconsultinggroup@gmail.com.
Well, that's a fantastic offer. I definitely think anybody who's even starting a business or they're struggling in their business and they don't know why, to take advantage of that 30-minute complimentary session. So whether you got questions about leadership or your business operations or your self-assessment, even if you haven't started a business and you want to know if you've got what it takes to start one, now is your opportunity to have a 30-minute free session with Anna Yu. So thank you so much, Anna. I'm looking forward to collaborating with you on different things. We're going to combine our networks to see how we can help each other. And that's another great way for our listeners to think about collaboration. What can you do to help somebody else? And what can they do to help you so that mutually your businesses can move forward and be complementary to each other and advantageous to any of your customers or clients or your market. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Elaine. Nice chatting with you.
You too.
To receive your free gift and connect directly with the podcast guest, visit our website at fabfempreneurship.com/entrepreneur mastermind podcasts and click on this episode. Here's to building your business growth, one step at a time. If you enjoyed this podcast, why not tune in to other episodes in this series at fabfempreneurship.com/entrepreneur mastermind podcasts.